What's up, everybody? Thanks for clicking on the link. I know. I can hear y'all saying now, this heifer got the unmitigated gall to get on here over a week later and do a review / recap on Underground. Well, y'all, first of all, let me say I am so sorry. I have been working like a Hebrew slave, and I have not had the opportunity to even finish watching the episode of Underground until recently. And before I do a review, I always have to at least watch it twice to get the full breadth of the show. And, you know, I'm kind of sad because WGN is talking about not picking the show up next season. And how in the world are they going to leave us with this cliffhanger of a season finale that we just saw last week? I mean, I am so tense right now because I need to know, I got to know what happened to Noah and Rosalie and James and the baby and everything. I need to know, you know? So I'm praying that if WGN decides to drop it, which I hope they don't, I'm praying that somebody else picks it up. Perhaps Oprah will bring it to OWN. I mean, she's dropped a couple of Tyler Perry shows. Maybe she'll bring Underground over to OWN. But we'll see. But anyway, I'm not going to even think about that right now. All I can say is this season finale that I just saw was just phenomenal. Phenomenal. And I just want to get into what I saw. Okay? And I know y'all have seen 1,000 different reviews and recaps, but I just had to go ahead and do this video. I wasn't going to at first, but I said, why not? I did the other 9 episodes. I might as well go ahead and do this one too. So here I go with the recap or commentary on Soldier, the season finale of Underground. The episode starts off with Harriet. You know, she was on the road and she had gone to meet with Noah and Rosalie, but she's still in her travels on her voyage. I guess she's still doing what she normally does, and that's going to free slaves. Well, one night she's asleep in this cabin and sleep sitting up in her chair like she does, when all of a sudden there's a knock on the door. And of course, she's always on alert and on guard, and she gets up, she looks out the window, and then she goes to the door with her pistol, and she peeps around the corner. She's like, state your purpose. And it's this younger white guy, and he tells her that his name is George Stearns. Y'all bear with me because I got my notes here on the phone, but they're kind of all over the place. But he says his name is George Stearns, and he is one of the Secret Six. He is one of John Brown's comrades. So he lets Harriet know that they have a friend in common, being John Brown. So she lets him on in and she tells him, you're a long way from home. And he's like, yeah, you're right, I sure am. And so he says, I got a message from the captain that's for your ears only. And she tells him, well, my ears are listening. So he tells her that John Brown had mentioned, or what he had been talking about the country needing something, you know, spectacular or phenomenal to happen, something to propel them forward in this fight, you know, this abolition fight, basically. And she said, yeah, what we talked about was an act of war. And he said, yeah, well, he thinks, John Brown believes he's found that opportunity because he has discovered an arsenal of weapons at Harper's Ferry, Virginia, and he's going to basically raid it, steal those weapons and everything. And so she's like, okay, this country does need something big. And she said, if it's done right, it'll spread like wildfire. And a wildfire is going to be hard to extinguish, going to be hard to put out. And so he tells her, he says, yeah. And he says, he makes a quote that John Brown had already mentioned to Harriet about arming the slaves so that they can be prepared, or they can protect themselves in this war that's been waged against them, meaning slavery. All along the eastern seaboard, he wants to be able to give every slave a weapon. So she actually finishes his sentence for him. So at that point, she's really comfortable. She realizes, okay, this man is from John Brown. So then she tells him, she says, I want to thank you, tell John Brown, tell the captain thank you for his confidence. And so as Mr. Stearns, or George Stearns, is leaving, he tells her, he says, well, the captain had one other request. And she was like, what's that? And he said, he wants you to be a part of the raid. And so that's when Harriet stops and she looks, this look of concern you could see comes over her face. And you could tell she was thinking, oh, brother, it's just got real. If y'all remember in episode 8 or 9, she was out praying while she was on her journey to go meet Noah and Rose. She was having a talk with the Lord in that abandoned church or the empty church that day. And she was basically expressing how this feat that's before her is bigger than her. She don't know if she's qualified to do all of these things that she believed that God had called her to do. So here she is. She's facing a task now. And it's like it has just gotten real. I mean, all this time she's been sneaking into slave quarters and helping slaves get free and get up north. But now this is a horse of a different color. Now she's got to actually go into a battle with white people against slavery. Something totally different here. And you can see the concern on her face. And it actually changes from that scene. And you don't see Harriet anymore during the season finale. Okay? So then it goes to Daniel. Remember, Daniel actually showed up at the boarding house on episode 9 as Liz was getting ready to leave. After Georgia had put her out, she runs into Daniel. She sees him there. She sees that his eyes are messed up and she realizes that he's blind. And she asks him, can she help him? That's what she told him last season. Well, they show him this week sitting down at the table and he's talking to Georgia. There's Rose in the room, Liz, and Noah is in the room too. And Noah's a little bit, you can tell he's a little, ever since last episode when he had the conversation with Rose, he's mad with her still. So he kind of got an attitude. And he's standing there listening. And Daniel is actually talking to them and telling them about how he learned how to read. He told him the first word that he mentioned, or one of the words that stood out to him, was the word abolition. He said he didn't know what it meant, but he knew that his owner, his master, did not like it. And he said when he first learned how to read, that was one of the first words that he had to learn about. And he starts to write the word on the table. He starts to write it out with his finger. And so he said how whenever a slave got in trouble on the plantation, the master would always say, that's the fruit of abolition right there. So he goes on, and then they show Liz and Georgia and Noah all having a discussion, and Rose, of course, about helping him. Liz is like, we got to help this man, because he had told them also. He said, when Liz asked him, she said, oh no, when Georgia asked him, she said, how did you find us? You know, basically with your eyes being like they are. And he said, I ain't have no other choice, because they about to sell his wife and daughter off. They about to sell his family. And Liz also asked him, Liz said, what happened to your eyes? And he told them that the master caught him teaching some other slaves how to read. And so he had the overseer to put lye on his eyes, okay? So he also tells them that the master to keep him and the family from running from the plantation, because they know John Brown might be coming. And so all the slave masters were afraid. They were scared that the slaves were going to either run away or John Brown was going to come and do something to them. So slave owners were, of course, selling their slaves down south. And he knew that his slave master was going to sell his wife and daughter. And to keep him from running, what he did was he took Daniel's son, a baby boy, and had him sleeping in the bedroom with him at night. Just to keep them, because he knew if he had them in the room with them, they weren't going to leave without that baby. So this was another thing. And he was like, I need y'all help. I don't know what to do. So that's when Liz was like, we've got to help him. Georgia, of course, was very cautious. She said, it's only 3 of us, and we doing all this for one man and his family. But before she got to that point, Georgia had suggested that they buy their freedom. But then Rose reminded them, she said, we can't buy them. It's too late for that, because a bill of sale has already gone out. We've already gone out for them. So we can't do it. And so, and Liz also tells him, she said, we're not going to put money in the hands of a man that blinded him. So she's not going to reward that man for poor behavior. So they're sitting around talking, and Georgia was like, we're going to do all this for one man and his family. And Noah was like, if we can't do it for one good man, who are we going to do it for? All right. And so she shuts up at this point. She understands. All right. So at that point, they discuss it, and you can tell that they made up their mind that they are going to help Daniel. They started talking about, even though it's only 3 of them, but that's okay. They're going to get more. And at one point, Rose told them, she said that, you know, the only problem with me is this baby. So Rose knew that baby was going to be coming any day now. She couldn't chance any moment. So she couldn't chance going out there helping. So she had to stay behind, of course. Okay. Now, then they go to a scene with Cato. Cato is in this room, what appears to be a hotel room or something. And I guess it's a hotel room. For all I know, it could have been back at Cato's house. I don't know. But there's this white lady getting dressed. All you see is her arms and elbows. And Cato is talking to her, and we assume, I'm sure I'm not the only one that assumed that was Patty Cannon. I was like, is that Patty he's sleeping with? Please tell me he ain't stooped that low. But anyway, he's talking about notoriety, getting notoriety and being a legend while you're alive and not when you're dead. And he's talking about the name Patty Cannon will never die. He's going to make sure that it lives on throughout the centuries. And that's another reason that I thought that that was who he had slept with. Because it was obvious that he had slept with whoever the woman was that was in the room. But as they got close up on the woman, she wasn't really paying him much attention, but he goes over to help her tie up her brassiere, her bustier, and she turns around, and it's a totally different white girl, a younger white girl, who looks to me like she probably came from a brothel, like she was a prostitute, some probably a young hooker or something that Cato had hooked up with. And he had her to say her name, and she said her name was Patty Cannon. So it became obvious that Cato had a plan underway. I don't know what he was going to do, but I knew he was going to get the real Patty Cannon out of the way, and he was going to use her to play Patty Cannon. It was something strange going on. Wasn't sure what his full plan was, but I knew something was going on. I knew he had theater connections after that episode where he did the Chitlin circuit, the white face and black face theater. So I knew that that wasn't a far-fetched idea for Cato to try something related to acting. Just didn't know how far he was going to go with it, okay? So I was very perplexed at that point. But I said, this is another white lady. He talking about, got her saying her name, Patty Cannon. What is Cato up to at this point? But I knew it wasn't good, whatever it was. So then, because like I said, he wanted to go down in history as being the best slave catcher that ever was. I'm like, what? How is he going to do that? He a black man. Is he forgetting that he black too? Anyway, so they go from that scene, they go to August and Steen. August and Steen are actually walking back. They're obviously, well, we find out later on that they're back in Macon, in Georgia. And they go back to August's old house, his old cabin. And it's obviously abandoned. And he and Steen walk up on it, and he sees two grave markers, two crosses in his yard. And of course, I'm assuming Steen can't read. So she sits down, and he kneels down on the ground next to those grave markers. And Steen asks him, she said, who they for? And he says one is for his wife because it has the name Charlotte written on the cross. And the other one is for his slave. His slave's name was Jay. Okay? Obviously, both of them had died while he's been gone because, he went to jail for killing the white guy in season 1. And they were buried on his property. There's no grave marker for Ben. Nobody knows where Ben is, his son. All we know is his son had been crippled after his contact with Rosalie last season. But nobody knows what happened to him at this point. So, of course, August is devastated about the fact that his wife has died. If y'all remember correctly, in season 1, August's wife was mentally ill because he was paying for her to be in a mental institution. That is why he was actually working as a slave catcher. That's how he made his money. Okay? She was in the nut house. So who knows what has happened to them since. Okay? So anyway, and I got a feeling that whatever happened to Charlotte and Jay, his slave and his wife, is going to, if we are blessed and fortunate enough to get a season 3 of Underground, it's probably going to come out. He's going to want to know what happened to them, and we're going to find out that the way that they died probably had absolutely nothing to do with natural death. I don't know, I got a feeling there's a story behind that, okay? So anyway, so he's down there sulking and sad, and Steen notices how sad he is, and she offers him some of her Huff and Puff, that indigo drug that she takes. I call it Huff and Puff. But she offers him some, and he rejects it at first. And so she pours some on her little cloth anyway, and she kneels down beside him because she sees he's suffering, and she's like, come on, I'll do it with you, okay? So she sits down next to him, and she takes a big huff of it. And then she passes it over to him. He does take it this time, and he realizes, okay, if she took it, it didn't do nothing to her, even though she has developed a tolerance for this stuff now. He takes it and he huffs some of it too. And all the while that he takes it, or this is going on, you hear this bluegrass song playing, like on, I don't know if y'all have ever seen Oh Brother, Where Art Thou with George Clooney and John Turturro on it. But it was a real funny movie about some poor white people during the Depression, and they played a lot of bluegrass music, and bluegrass music is what this was being played during this scene. And the whole time that August is getting high, you hear this music playing, and it's slowing down and slurring. The higher he gets, the slower the music gets. So I thought that was an interesting twist. I mean, an interesting addition to that scene. It made it more dramatic, of course. So then while he starts to lay down on the grave all helpless and high, Steen once again runs. She takes off running. Boom, 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 boom. And she's running through cotton fields and everything. I'm like, where's she going now? Okay, she done just took off running. Now, it becomes apparent eventually that she's not really running from August as much as she was running to the Macon plantation, but I'll get to that part later. So they change from that scene. She's still running. So they go from that scene to they show little James. He's back at the boarding house, of course, with Rosalie in Georgia, because they stayed behind while Liz and Noah and them go out to help Daniel get his family out of bondage. They stayed at the boarding house. And you see little James is sitting up at a counter playing solitaire. When Rose comes in and she asks him if he's all right and everything, he said, yeah, I'm all right. And then he says, are we ever going to see Mama again? And she says, yeah. He said he didn't believe. He's like, we ain't gonna never see Mama again. She's like, why you say that? And he starts telling her that he overheard the conversation that they were having with Daniel and how hard it is to get family people saved and across the river to freedom. And she was like, there's no way. How we gonna get Mama? We don't even know where she at. So Rosa starts to explain to him, have a little talk with him about how strong Steen is and how smart she is and how he has the same smarts that Steen had and how both of them inherited her smartness from her. And he says she's going to be all right. Mama's going to find us because she's strong and she's smart, and I'm pretty sure that she's going to get to us somehow. So she consoles him like that, and then they sit down on the sofa, and she lets him feel the baby kick. That was a real sweet moment between her and James and everything. So after that, it goes back to Steen running through this cotton field. It's hot. She high off the huff and puff. And she catching up. She got that dress hiked up. You can see her biker shorts. I say, I'm sure they didn't want us to see her biker shorts because they ain't had no biker shorts back in the 1800s. But anyway, she's running, and she's hearing voices because she's hallucinating, I'm sure, from this heat. And she's hearing the voice of the character from that Angela Bassett played when she was a young girl, when she was telling her how she's got plans to how she gonna survive, and she's hearing her voice, and she's hearing some other people's voices, hallucinating. Let's see, she's hearing conversations with Rose. So as she's running and as she kind of slows down because she's out of it, what shakes her back to reality is hearing August, because August then came to and he done caught out behind her, and she hears him call her name, so that brings her back to reality, okay? So he's running behind her in the heat too. She catches out running some more. And he begins to hallucinate in the heat as well. And he's hearing past conversations with his slave Jay, where Jay warned him back about his son, telling him don't take that boy with you because he don't need to see you catching those slaves because you didn't want to teach him that. I remember that from season 1. Jay was a voice of reason for August, and August listened to him. He was more of a friend than a slave to August anyway. That's how I knew August wasn't as bad a person as everybody thought he was. So he was hearing his voice. It sounded like he was hearing the voice of Rosalie too, but I can't be sure about that because it was kind of twisted up. It was kind of faded out. So anyway, as he's running. Steen running. She's up ahead of him. Steen winds up at the big house. This is where I said I'm not sure if she was so much running from August, because I think she had realized or determined that he was trying to help her, that he was not a threat to her safety at this point. I don't think she was running from him as much as she was trying to run to the big house, and maybe she thought that he would never take her there, so she had to go there on her own. And that's what she did. She ran to where the big house used to be, because the only thing left there now is a fireplace and some ashes and dirt, okay? And she gets up on it and she's looking around, and August winds up catching up to her, and she's like, "Am my eyes deceiving me? Am I seeing things?" And he was like, "Ain't nothing to see." She's like, "Dog is gone." And she's like, "What now?" And of course, he don't know what to say. They just standing there looking and everything, and it's like, oh my God. And I promise y'all, when I saw the remains of that house, I'm thinking, is that the big house? That house was huge. Now, I know when something burns down, there's nothing going to be left but ashes. But it just seemed like it should have covered, even the ashes, the burn part should have covered more area than what we saw on the TV screen. It was strange to me. I don't know. Was it just me that thought that looked like a different house? But anyway, so the next thing you see is Rose. She's back at the boarding house, and she's packing this bag, and she's actually getting ready. What you figure out a few minutes from there, she's packing a bag, getting ready for Noah to actually help with Daniel's remote. She's getting a bag ready for him to leave, basically, because he's fixing to go off with Liz and them. And she's putting some stuff together for him, and he comes into the room, and there's this awkward silence, because like I said, Noah's still mad with her. He got an attitude, so he ain't really talking to her. So there's this strange silence that passes between them, and he starts packing up too. So they getting ready and everything, and she's the one that breaks the ice, and she starts talking to him, and she starts explaining why she did things the way that she did them, by not telling him that she was pregnant. She starts explaining to him that she was weak, just like her daddy, Master Macon, was. She was like, he was a weak man, and everything he did was out of fear, and she was doing what she did out of fear. Ever since she found out that she was carrying that baby, everything she did was out of fear. And she was trying to explain all these things to him, and she told him, she said, "I was afraid for you." She didn't even want him to go out. She wanted him to help Daniel, but at the same time, she wanted him to stay there with her. And she asked him, she says, "How do you get rid of this fear?" And Noah tells her, you don't get rid of the fear. You don't let the fear go. She said, he told her, just don't let it twist into something bad, He starts talking about his hopes and dreams of freedom for his unborn son. And then Rosalie, after they get through packing and everything, she tells him, they said a lot of little things, and I don't remember verbatim, but they had a little conversation about fear, and he was explaining to her some things. And as she was handing him whatever it was she was working on for him, she told him, she said, "I love you." And so as he's walking off, getting ready to go, he's crying. Some tears is in his eyes. And he told her, he said, "It's not that I don't want to forgive you." He said, "I don't know if I can." And she tells him, she says, "That's all right." She said, "All you got to do is come back to us. Just make sure you come on back." And he sheds a little tear on the way out the door. Such a loving moment. But Noah gonna have to let that go. I understand he's mad and everything, but this ain't the time to act like that. Things is too risky. You don't ever know if you're gonna see your loved one from one day to the next during that time. So he really needed to let that go. He needed to. But he goes on out the door. He's still a little upset and hurt. I guess he got to have his moment. He got to go through his process. So he leaves on out the room, okay? Then they show Liz and the Lawrence boys. They've already made it to Kentucky one night, and it's her, the Lawrence boys, Noah. Of course, like I said, Georgia and them are back at the boarding house, and Liz is out there giving them a pep talk, telling them, "We doing this for one family, but we're gonna make it for everybody. We're gonna make it count for all enslaved families." And so Noah is laying out the game plan to free all of the slaves on 3 different plantations. He said they got about 5 hours until the sun comes up, but they really only have 3 hours to do what they have to do, because of course they got to get where they got to go, and then they got to get back there. So all in all, they got about 3 hours to work the plan out, and 2 of those hours in the 5 hours is like probably traveling time. So anyway, he's telling them what they're going to have to do. They're going to have to hit 3 plantations up. And he says that he's going to get the baby from the big house. He's the one that's going to get this little baby. So after they lay their plans out, Liz questions Noah about the safety of going to the big house by himself. She's like, "You going to be all right? You sure you should be going alone?" And she also says, "Shouldn't you take somebody with you?" And he says, "Why, if something happens?" She was like, "What if something happens?" And he's like, "If something happens, what is one man gonna do?" And so he tells her, "You go and get your moment." He'll basically let her know, "Let me handle this. I got this. You go on about your business, okay?" And so she leaves it alone. So he does make it to the big house. And he's actually at Daniel's big house, Daniel's master's house. And they also had talked about how they're going to get these slaves in the house to go along with their plan too. So at some point they started showing little clips of them talking to him. So they did convince one of the house slaves to help him. So when Daniel got to the house, he even took his shoes off and everything. The female house slave is leading him into the master's room. And she's blowing out candles along the way. And so she opens the door. The master's in there asleep. And while they are on the way into the room, the master actually wakes up. And he's like, what's going on? And he said, she says, it's always just me, master. He says, the mistress wanted me to blow out all the candles. And he says, well, hurry up and get on out of here before you wake that baby up, okay? And while she's closing the door, Daniel done got down on the floor and he's crept around to the bed. So he waits until he hears the master snoring, letting him know that he's falling back asleep again. And he actually succeeds in picking the little baby up and leaving the room, okay? So, but apparently at some point, master must have woke up and saw that the baby was missing, because they show Liz and them outside. And some of the Lawrence boys runs up to her and tell her, the master's up and he's holding the house girl hostage. He's got a fire poker from the fireplace holding her hostage. So like I said, he must have woke up, found out that the baby was missing, and he was in there holding the girl hostage. And one of the Lawrence boys, I'm thinking it may have been Lucas, that was standing there talking to him, trying to persuade him to let the girl go, because he was acting like he was going to kill her. Well, Liz and Elliot, the black Lawrence boy, they went back into the house and they're peeping around from the front room, watching who I think is Lucas trying to talk the master out of killing the black girl. And he was like, the master was like, how do I know you ain't going to do nothing to me? And Lucas was like, we're not going to kill you. I promise you, if you just let her go. You don't want to do this. Turn her over to me. And he kept holding his hand out to help her. The girl's just as scared as she want to be. So the master's like, okay, all right. But he never did let her go. Not fast enough for Liz. Liz was like, okay, we got to get out of here. She was telling Elliot, we have got to go because we got to meet Noah. She tired of playing around with this white man. She's like, I ain't got time for this. So Liz takes her gun. She walks out and she cocks it and she blows the man. I'm assuming she shot him in the head, but blood goes everywhere. Slave girl just screaming and hollering, ah! I'm like, girl, shut up. She coming to save you. So they all make it on out the house. But at some point, it must have woke up everybody on the plantation, overseers and all. But anyway, I'll get to that in a minute. So Liz done got gangster. She done waxed gangster and killed her one. All right. So they got to hurry up and go out. So at this point, like I said, she shot the master. Lucas is stunned. He's looking like, oh my God. Wow. Okay. So then they go from that scene to Rose, James, and Georgia. Georgia is reading to James. This one night, she actually sitting there reading to him, and he talking to her back at the boarding house. All of a sudden, Patty and her gang starts shooting up in the house and yelling from the outside. And she's yelling, talking about, send the black Rose out or I'm going to start killing people, is what Patty, I can't stand Patty. I'm like, oh my God, somebody please. And that Cato, I'm pissed off with Cato at this point. More and more, I'm getting more and more pissed with him because he done brought this woman to the boarding house, putting all these people's life in danger. So anyway, so at this point, not only do I want Patty dead, but I want Cato to die too. Seriously, I really wanted him to be killed at this point, okay? So they're yelling from the outside of the house, and Georgia starts sending everybody into their rooms. She's telling them to get their weapons and telling the people to go hide and go into these trap doors and whatever. So they get weapons and they arm themselves. And let me make sure, because I don't want to leave nothing out. Let's see. She sends everybody to their room and they get their weapons and stuff. And they basically have a bit of a shootout in the house. And a couple of the slaves there actually are shot. It gets rough up in the house, and even Rose takes James and she goes into this dark hallway where she runs into two of Patty's men standing off in the darkness. She saw them and she shot at least one of them, and they wound up getting away. So then the next thing you know, because at first I said, oh my God, did they shoot Rose? But I realized Rose actually shot and killed at least one of them. So she runs back. She tells James to turn around. They go back up. And while she's hiding, trying to hide in another room, she runs up on Cato. Cato steps out from around the corner with a lantern in his hand. And she looks at him because she hadn't seen him in a while. She's like, oh my God, she can't believe. It's like, is this a ghost? And he looking at her smirking and everything. Like, I done found you, Black Rose. So she winds up able to close the door to the room that she and James is in. And she barricades the door and everything while she's leaving Cato outside. And they exchange words. Cato, she says he's a nigga, or you ain't nothing but a nigga. And he tells her he ain't no nigga, he just Cato. In other words, I ain't no black man, I'm Cato. You know, just... Cato has gotten really beside himself at this point. It's like you don't know what Cato has up his sleeve. We don't know what his problem is with other black people. You just know at this point you want him dead too. Because he's seeming more and more like the enemy every moment, okay? So, even Georgia's up there. They done had a shootout. Georgia even shoots her somebody at one point. So it got real up there on the first floor of the boarding house, okay? So then, Cato is still taunting Rosa Lee from the outside with little James in the room. And Rose starts appearing to be going into labor. You can see that she's starting to huff and puff and starting to sweat. I was like, oh my God. She down there going into labor, people being shot upstairs in the house. And at some point, Patty's men actually capture all the slaves in the house. They actually get them and round them up and everything. So they didn't call upstairs, okay? Then they switch over. They show Noah and Daniel and some slaves, including Daniel's wife, daughter, and the baby boy, are still waiting on Liz and the Lawrence boys to meet them at the stable. Because remember now, Liz and them just shot the master. And they just got the other slave free. See, Noah then already did what he had to do. He done did his part. He done got the baby, and they done got some other slaves too. Well, when Liz and them were really late getting to the stable to meet them, and Daniel and them was getting a little bit concerned, and he asked Noah, he said, you think we should go ahead and cross the river without him? And at that moment, they hear a gunshot, and it turns out to be Liz and the rest of the fellas. So Noah, Liz, and the Lawrence boys and all of the escaped slaves are in this stable trying to figure out the best way to get away, because now that the Kentucky law is on their trail, some kind of way, I guess all the overseers and the mistress and everything, they done called the Kentucky law on them, and they're on their trails now, and they have blocked them off at the river. And Liz was like, well, maybe we can sneak by them. And then Elliot says, no, we can't, not with a baby and a blind man with us. And that's when Daniel said, well, don't worry about me, just get out as many as you can. But Noah said, no, ain't nobody gonna be left behind. We ain't running no more. And he opens up this thing and he says, I want everybody who can. Everybody got two hands is able gonna get a rifle, and we need to protect ourselves. And he starts preaching to them, telling them, no, I'm tired of running. I'm sick of this. We got to do something about this. He said the road to freedom is paved with blood. But who said that it has to be mine? Or who says that it has to be ours? I was like, you go ahead on, Noah. Do your thing, honey. I like when he said that. You're tired of running. You shouldn't have to keep running from people for your freedom. Go ahead and fight for your freedom. If they after you and they trying to put you in slavery, they deserve to be dead. And I think he got that at that moment, okay? So, once again, Noah says he chooses to fight his way back to his family. That's what I like to see. That's what I like to hear right there. So then they go back, they show Pat and her gang. They in the house along with Donahue, the writer, and he's always standing there holding that book, taking notes. And they holding Georgia and the rest of the slaves hostage while Rose and James are still barricaded with Cato outside the door. And there's some other men downstairs trying to get into the room with Rosalie and James as well. But they've got all the openings, like I say, barricaded, but they close to getting in. All right. So while they're down there and Rose is slowly going into labor, you can see it. She's directing James and telling James to go and help her out. And James starts to help her by securing the room and helping her to prep to deliver this baby. And she had even asked him, she said, you ever seen a baby delivered before? He said, no, because the Miss Susanna didn't like them nowhere around when babies were being born. His mom and them didn't like nobody around when babies being born. But he goes, and I was proud of little James at that moment. He made me mad 2 episodes ago, but I was really, really proud of him in that moment. I said, look at this, like a little big man. Like a little man at that point. He was helping his sister out. I said, that's a tough little old boy right there. So anyway, he goes and he actually picks up this really sharp knife because this arm, one of the men's arms comes through the door. And little James took that knife and he stabbed her. He stabbed one of the men in the hand. So I said, you go ahead, James. If I was him, I'd have sawed that hand off. That man wouldn't have had nothing but a nub if it had been me. But anyway, but that came a little bit later on. But while there, like I said, Cato is out there. He realizes that those men who tried to get to her, they couldn't get to her. And then you see Cato with a smirk on his face. And I realized in that moment that Cato did not want those men, Patty's men, to catch Rosalie. He wanted to do it. He didn't want them doing it. It wasn't time yet. So I realized that that was not what he intended to happen. When you saw that smirk on his face outside the door, he was glad she was barricaded in there, but he did not, obviously didn't want them to catch him, okay? So anyway, it just started to look like he wanted her to hide herself in that room, all right? So anyway, the next thing you see is Patty wants Donahue to write some more stuff in his book about her while she's there, because she thought she was going to catch Harriet there. So then, meanwhile, back in Kentucky, Noah, Liz, and them, they having their own little battle with the Kentucky militiamen. Everybody's shooting. Many of the Kentucky lawmen have been killed. The house girl winds up getting shot. You're not sure at that moment if she's dead or not, because she gets shot and she falls over. And also another one of the Lawrence men gets shot, but you can't tell if he's dead yet or not either. So they're going back and forth between scenes. You see the Kentucky militiamen fighting with Noah and Liz, a whole war going on down there in Kentucky. So then they show Rose, she's still in there bleeding and trying to push that baby out. She done squatted like she on the toilet stool. She done got everything together. Little James standing off to the side, and she's squeezing and pushing, but while these men beating on the door trying to get in, little James being a big boy, and it's at this point where he actually picks up that sharp knife and he goes and stabs that man in his hand as he tried to stick it through the door. So they go back and they show the house girl and one of the Lawrence boys. They like I said, they wound up shot. But you find out later that they're not actually dead. Liz, true soldier. I'm so proud of Liz. I don't know what to do. Noah and the rest of them out there on the front lines while Rose is struggling to push that baby out. So you got two different events going on here. And I got a little emotional when Rose had that baby too. I said, look at Noah. Noah out here fighting for his family and fighting for freedom while his woman is back there giving birth to his baby, okay? Powerful to me, okay? So Liz is standing out there fighting. I don't know if this is at the point. Well, they show during this time, Rose finally has this baby. The little baby comes on out, okay? She delivers this cute little chocolate brown baby. That baby obviously is about 3 months old at the birth, but we're going to pretend for the sake of argument that it's a newborn baby. And all this blood is everywhere, and James standing over there just stunned. I'm like, boy, when you going to give her the towel? Just take the sheet over there to her. But she stands there. She takes this baby out, and she kisses her baby. I say, you go ahead on, Rose. I got a newfound respect for Rose, all right? So then they show Cato. Cato is, I noticed he's up in the office that he was in, Georgia's office, and he finds these papers there. And he smiles when he finds those papers. At this point, you don't know what the paper is, but he takes it down to Georgia, and not Georgia, but Patty, and he tells Patty, I know where Harriet is. And he shows her this letter. So Patty reads the letter, and she asks Donahue, he says, do you want to see firsthand me catching Harriet? So they leave. They leave all the slaves in Georgia there, and they leave the rest of the men there. But Patty, Cato, and Donahue actually go off to go and get Harriet from this place that she's supposed to be at. So they get out there, and Patty sets up her gun because she's going to shoot Harriet when she comes out the door. And that's when Donahue looks over at her and says, oh, you don't want to face her? So Patty stops and thinks about it for a moment, and then they decide to go into the house, all right? So when they go into the cabin, they start looking around for Harriet. It's only one room. There's nowhere for her to hide. Patty said, ain't nowhere for her to hide, so you've lied to me. You're wrong. She's not here. She's not here. So she turns around mad with Cato. Donahue standing off to the left-hand side. Cato takes his rifle and points it in her face. He cocks the rifle, and he shoots Patty square in her head. I say, yes, finally. So at this point, I get some new hope for Cato. Cato just had my emotions up and down, up and down. It's like, oh my God, I don't know what he's going to do next. So when he shoots Patty, I'm thinking, yes, he's on our side. That's what you think until he starts explaining to Donahue what he's got going on. And you start thinking about the conversation he had with the prostitute back in the hotel room or wherever he was. He tells Donahue, because Donahue got blood all in his face. He's stunned and obviously shaken by what he has just witnessed. He can't believe Patty Cannon is dead. Cato says the only mistake Patty made was believing in her own legend, thinking that she was invincible. He said it was a good legend, though, one that shouldn't have died just yet. And he just starts explaining things to Donahue. Donahue had asked him how he plans to, he asked him what he means when he says he's going to get the men, what he means and how he's going to get these men, Patty's men, to follow him. Cato tells him that he's taken over the Patty Cannon gang and that he already has a new Patty, meaning the girl from the hotel room, and that most people are slaves that need a master. He said it don't matter the color. He says that having real power doesn't mean you gotta flaunt it. So he's about to give them the biggest score yet, and that's going to be the Black Rose. So then they go back to Liz and Daniel, and some of the others are waiting and looking out in the stable when Noah and the rest of them finally show up after this battle has ensued, you know. So when they show up, you find out that the house girl is actually still alive, and the Lawrence boy that was shot in the neck, he's actually still alive. Maybe he got grazed or something, but neither one of them died. So Noah says it's all over, and you hear Daniel tell Noah, he says, thank you. Thank you, man. And so I was like, oh, we can breathe. At least in this respect, we can breathe. They're going to get out. They have won this war. So apparently they must have shot all of the Kentucky militiamen. They must have killed them all. But you already know they was in trouble. But the thing is, y'all excuse me, I'm going to drop my candy on the floor. Hold on. Now, the good thing about it, okay, is this little battle that Noah done had with these militiamen. Nobody knows who killed them. So hopefully they have killed everybody and nobody can say who did what. Maybe they'll think it was John Brown and his gang that did it. So anyway, that's a good thing. That's a positive point in the movie, okay? Liz and them didn't lose not one of their soldiers, all right? So, let's see. At one point, Liz was being... When I said that Liz is a true soldier, at that point, the reason I say that is because she was standing there and there was one of the Kentucky militiamen who were approaching her, getting ready to kill, of course, her. Daniel was inside the barn because, of course, Daniel can't see. So he can't do a whole lot. So she was trying to get her pistol ready. She was getting ready to shoot the man, but she ran out of ammunition. So she started packing more ammunition in it. But then Daniel realizes, apparently, he can hear real good, that she's out of ammunition. And he hands her a pistol. He passes her a gun from inside the stable because they done brought some weapons with them. So he hands her the weapon. She shoots the guy. I said, go ahead, Liz. That's why I say that's a bad mama jamma, that Liz. That white girl bad there. So anyway, let's see. So Cato is still on his mess. He did a great thing. I was thinking about inviting him to the barbecue when he killed Patty, but then all this crazy mess he's still talking about capturing the Black Rose. I'm mad with him. That's what I'm saying. Cato is so selfish. He's such a selfish, delusional character. I can't with Cato. I simply can't. Okay? But anyway, the next thing they show, after Noah and them defeat the Kentucky militiamen, Steen has... Apparently, she's waking up by this tree in the woods. And there was this fire apparently burning. They done camped out for the night. She wakes up to find August sitting there with a gun to his head, obviously about to kill himself. He's still distraught about his wife and his slave and the fact that he don't even know where his son is. So Steen sits there and looks at him. And she decides that she's going to have a talk with him. But she first questions whether or not she should even help him because of the things that he's done. She reminds him of his encounter with her daughter, Rosalie. She's like, I don't even know if I should help you. You ain't no good man, so I don't even know if I should even try to. But then she starts to explain to him how she wanted to kill herself not so long ago and how she tried to do it a couple of times. And she's had a change of heart. She has learned to forgive others. And herself, basically. I'm paraphrasing what she said. She's happy now about the fact that she's had a change of heart. I'm sure Steen is freer now than she's been in a long time. And she eventually basically talks him out of killing himself because She told him all about what she's gone through. And she says, we don't have to keep feeding the darkest parts of ourselves. And she eventually gets up and she goes over to him and she takes the gun out of his hand. And at that moment, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but there's a little bit of romantic something going on between them. I'm not sure. I don't think it's necessarily on Steen's part, but I think maybe August might be attracted to Steen. Do y'all think it's a possibility that her and him might get together? Because he sure is hanging on to her. Because we've already realized or discovered that he doesn't want to hurt her. Because if he wanted to do anything to her, he would have done it. Unless he's trying to keep her alive until they find Rosalie. Maybe he wants to pay Rosalie back for what she did to his son. I don't know. What y'all think? But there's something kind of low-key romantic, this energy that's being passed between the two of them. To me, maybe I'm just a romantic. I don't know, but that's what it seems like. So anyway, so they get through that moment. He lives to fight another day because of Steen, okay? So then they go back, they show Noah and the rest actually make it back to the boarding house the next day. And he and Liz go in looking for everybody. Liz is like, Georgia, Georgia. And he's like, Rose, Rose. And they don't hear anybody. Everything's real quiet in the house. It's obvious that everybody's gone. But eventually he finds James and the baby. And they show a flashback. James and the baby is actually tucked down, hiding inside this secret compartment or something. And they show a flashback. And when what had happened was when Rose had her baby, she didn't have no other choice but to come on out the room because Cato finally coaxed her on out the room because they were about to break in. So she hid James in that little area with the baby. Bless her heart, she was crying. Of course, I know she didn't want to leave her newborn baby. Her body ain't even healed. I'm like, did she even deliver the afterbirth yet? But anyway, she went on and she was bloody. I know that Cato had to notice that something had transpired. Like, didn't he wonder why she was so bloody? Didn't he want to know what happened? Anyway. Listen at me trying to rewrite these people's script. But anyway, she left the baby there with James and they hid and she told them to wait there. And I guess she wound up having to go back with Cato. Okay. So James, when they find them, James tell them, he say they're gone. He took them, meaning Cato. He took Rose and George. He said he took all of them with him. So Noah takes his baby and he holds his baby and he starts weeping. And then he gets this ugly, funny look on his face looking like James Evans from Good Time. And he tell the baby, you gonna be free. You free. My baby is free. Yeah, I tried not to laugh because it was a real sentimental moment. But the way they had him looking with his eyes stretched out, it was kind of funny. But anyway. So then it goes from that scene. So Noah has his baby. And the baby's free because he's born in a free state. So that makes him automatically free by birth. Okay. So then they fast forward 10 months later and it looks like it's like the winter time or the fall or something like that. It's obviously very cool outside, but they go to this cabin and they show Liz waking up one morning with her hair all disheveled. You don't ever see, if y'all notice throughout the whole season and last season, you never saw Liz disheveled. Every time you see her, she put together. Her hair is combed and you never see her eat. I have never seen her eat. I'm like, do she eat? But she was in mourning, so she probably never had an appetite. And she was, always wore black. Hair was always fixed. I mean, that was her. You just never saw her in a relaxed state. Well, you see her waking up out of a bed with a pajama shirt on, hair all over her head for the first time ever. Okay? She's apparently was just in the bed with a man because they show this man up getting dressed. And at first I thought it was Lucas. I'm like, did her and Lucas finally hook up? But I realized that that was not Lucas because he looked very, very different. You know, I wasn't sure at first, but I went and did some reading, some research on some websites, and I found out that actually was not Lucas that she was with. Okay, that was another man. That was actually a Confederate soldier, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so she kissing on the man and she's hugging on. It appears that she likes the man at first, and she tells him, well, you should stay in with me. And of course he says, I can't do that. He got to get ready. He goes to work, and he kisses her goodbye. He tells her, I'll see you later on the night. So she lets him, she smiles at him, and he because you can see what they've done the night before. She had a real good night with this man. And so he leaves, and as soon as he leaves, she turns around. Her face goes from smiling to a look of disgust. I said, oh, she's up to something. She up to something. I knew then it could not have been Lucas for real. That was my confirmation. That ain't none of Lucas. That ain't Lucas. So she looks real crazy. I said, what is Liz up to? What she got going on? So then the next thing you see is her walking out on some docks where there are several men hauling what I later see are weapons, okay? She's got a lantern in her hand. And the first thing I noticed too is she's, for the first time ever, she's wearing something, a color other than black. She's got on this bright red dress. I said, okay, she's changed. Maybe she's finally released John Hawks, her husband. She's finally gotten over him and released him, okay? She's finally free from that. She done killed a few men, so she done got some therapy, okay? So she walks up and she hangs this lantern up on this post out on the docks, and then they show the side of a wagon that reads Harper's Ferry Arsenal. I think, oh, they're in Harper's Ferry, Virginia, and I remember to where George Stearns, one of the Secret Six men, John Brown's men, came and told Harriet that they were getting ready to raid Harper's Ferry. They were going to steal those weapons. So it became apparent to me, and it's even clearer now that I'm talking about it, that those 10 months that done passed, apparently she has had some contact with Harriet, Rose, all of them had some contact. And so Liz, who is, of course, she's a free white woman, she's got access, she has hooked up with one of those Confederate men, the man she was sleeping with, so that she can let the other people, she is going to be their access to Harper's Ferry. That's what she's doing. So she took that lantern and she hung it up there, and I think she probably put that there as a sign to them to let them know this is where y'all need to come. I said, look at Liz. Liz is smarter than the average bear, ain't she? So that's what I realized that she was doing. She was out there working, doing her part in this raid. She has joined the raid. Okay? Georgia might not be there. I don't know. Georgia may be mad now, though, after Cato and captured her. Hopefully they found Georgia and Rosalie and they've gotten free. And maybe they are on their way. Because Georgia, if she mad, like Liz is mad, maybe she done put down this peaceful thing, this peaceful way she's gotten, and now she's vigilant too. So that's what's going on. Liz is leading them there. That's what's going on. Y'all, they cannot let this show go. It's got to come back next season. I don't care how many prayers y'all got to send up. Send them up, because I want to see what's going to happen. I need to see what's going to happen. There is no way that these networks cannot continue this show. Okay? Even though I got a little bit of a feeling that it has more to do with just views being low, the reason why WGN is getting rid of it, or is talking about getting rid of it. I think some people are uncomfortable with the realness of this show. But it's really good to me. Really good to me. And I can't wait to see what happens. So anyway, that's pretty much the end of it. All I know is this raid at Harper's Ferry is about to happen because Liz is there and she is opening doors for the rest of them to come in. Can't wait to see what happens. But thank you for clicking on the link. And I'm so sorry once again it took so long. I just got an opportunity to do this. I also have got to get caught up on last week's and this week's episode of Empire, because the season finale for Empire will be on Wednesday. And I heard this past week's was really, really good. So anyway, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye-bye.